all have someone who we go for advice, help, or for even motivation. I know I constantly sought out help from older adults when it came to choosing what university I should attend, when it came to running for state office, and everything else in between. But who exactly are these people? And what role do they have in our lives? Why do they care so much about directing us in a good path? These people are called mentors. It does not matter what stage in life we are in, a mentor is always very helpful. With that being said, let's ask ourselves, who is a mentor and what do they do? Let's bring up everything we know about a mentor onto our sheet of paper.
Now that we've written down what we think a mentor is, let's go over the actual definition of a mentor. A mentor is a friend, a guide, somebody who's usually older than us, and they're there along us in every step of life, the hard times and the good. They set a positive example, and we're able to look up to them and seek their guidance through anything. That is a mentor. When I think of a mentor, I think of mine from this past year as a state officer. Miss Carrie Gray from BASF. We started our friendship not really knowing each other all that well, just kind of being put together as mentors and mentees. But soon she became one of my closest friends. I talked to her about hard things in life, the good things in life, school, family, friends, church, exams, hard things in FFA, and she was really there to help me all along the way. So let's think of that mentor in our life. It could be our mom, dad, ag teacher, pastor, Sunday school teacher, community member. And let's think of them and every characteristic that comes to mind when they're on our mind. On the next slide, we're going to hear some music. And when we hear the music, we're going to write down all those characteristics of our mentor, and then we'll come back together once the music's over. So with that being said, let's start writing those down.
So now that we know what a mentor is and some of the characteristics they exhibit, there are exactly 5 specific points that we should look for when searching for our mentor. These 5 specific points can be summarized in the acronym ALU.
So let's start at the beginning of our acronym. A, meaning accessible. Our mentors should be accessible. They should have the time, resources, and desire to pour into their mentee. They shouldn't look at it as an obligation, but rather an opportunity to pour into their protege. So when we're searching out mentors, start with A, an accessible mentor.
Next, they should be a listener, but not just any listener, a good listener. Some of the best mentors speak less and listen more. They open their ears and their minds to hear what their mentee is going through, what they thrive at, and even their ideas and struggles. A good listener is always a help when having a mentor by your side.
So we have A, L, and the third point of our acronym is E for encourager. Our mentor should be an encourager. When they see that we're going through hard times, they're there to pick us up with their kind words. When they see that we're struggling with weakness, they're also there to pick us up with their kind words. And even in the good times, they're there to encourage us. So when we're searching out for a mentor, we've got A, L, and E, an encourager.
The fourth thing a mentor should be is wise. Mentors tend to be older than their mentees. They probably have a bit more experience than we do. This experience comes with wisdom. They have been through a lot of what we are currently going through. So our mentors should be wise.
ALU, accessible, a listener, an encourager, wise, and lastly, the fifth point, willing to learn. To quote Mr. Bledsoe, if you're green, you're growing, and if you're ripe, you're rot. In a mentorship relationship, the mentee isn't the only one growing. Our mentor should also be growing. It's like following together in a garden. Everything should be growing. And it's the same for the mentee and the mentor. So when we're searching out for mentors, look for somebody who is willing to learn.
Now when we think of mentors, we can think of ALU. Our mentors should be accessible, listeners, encouragers, wise, and willing to learn. So let's now tap into our artistic side for this next activity. Using another sheet of paper, let's draw our mentor in our lives. But instead of a basic stick figure, let's make our drawings reflect the characteristics of our mentors. For example, my drawing has big ears because my mentor is a good listener. Or they might have a big heart because they're an encourager. Let's take the next few minutes to draw a mentor in our lives.
We now know all about a mentor, what their job is, what they're supposed to do. But what about us? What about the mentees, the proteges? Let's take a few minutes to jot down on a sheet of paper everything we know about a mentee, who they are, what they're supposed to be doing in the mentorship relationship. And on the next slide, we'll hear some music and we'll start jotting these thoughts down.
A mentee is also known as a protege. We are the young people seeking advice, support, and friendship from an adult other than our parents and guardians. On the next screen, we will see a QR code. Let's scan that QR code and watch the clip it brings us to. This video will show us firsthand of a mentor and mentee relationship. Once we finish that video clip, let's come back to the main workshop video.
The reason Elizabeth and I chose to include that video in this workshop is because it is a perfect illustration of what a mentorship relationship should look like. The mentor might be a little tough, they might have a lot to say, but usually there's a lot of wisdom packed in underneath that. Sometimes it takes some tough love, but they're there to guide us and to push us towards our goals. And a mentee, if they're in the right spot, should be there to soak up everything the mentor has to say. They're going to take it and apply it in their life, even if sometimes it's a little hard to hear. But at the end of the day, they're both there for each other. So we're going to think of that mentor in our life. It could be the mentor that we talked about at the beginning of the workshop, or it could be a new one. And we're going to write them a letter. First off, in our letter, we're going to thank them for being our mentor and for trusting us and for being by our side and being there to guide us along through our goals in life. Then next, we're going to share our vision and our mission for ourselves. We're going to share it with them so that they can keep us accountable and know exactly what we're trying to reach in our life. On the next slide, we'll have a prompt recapping everything that's going to be included in our letter. But let's write that to our mentor. We'll have about 5 minutes to do this, and then we'll give it to them at the end of this workshop. So let's get to writing those letters.
Now we know everything that we have to know about being a mentor and a mentee. But there is one vital piece of each of them that we need to unfold. Influence. We hear the word influence being tossed around a lot in our organization. But just to clear any confusion, we are going to watch a video that explains influence to the T. On the next slide, we will see another QR code, and let's scan that code. Watch the clip about influence and come back to this main workshop video for further instructions.
As that video showed, when we're leaders, we're having influence on other people even when we don't realize it. People are going to be watching us and looking up to us. So that's why it's important to know that we have influence whether we know it or not. In fact, I'm reminded of a time when I was a negative influence on my siblings, and it wasn't intentional. I was with my grandma helping her wash her hair and style her hair, and I lost my cool. I'd had a long day, I lost my cool, blew my top, and my siblings saw it. And I noticed that they saw me do it, and they probably thought that it was okay. I didn't realize it, but I had had a negative influence on them. That's why it's important to realize that we're all influencers. We have a platform. We just need to know how to use it.
I also have a big family. And with this big family comes a lot of chores. One day, I decided to skip out on doing my chores to hang out with my friends. Of course, I made this decision. But the effect of my decision trickled down through my family. My younger siblings began to skip out on doing their chores as well. And by the end of the week, a lot of chores were left incompleted. And my parents were disappointed in my siblings and I. I did not intentionally mean to be a negative influence, but I was. Because when you are a leader, you influence. Perhaps all of us have been in this situation, even if we didn't realize it. We have all been a negative influence on someone else's life before. Let's take a few moments to jot down a few thoughts about a time when we had become a negative influence on someone else.
It is important as FFA members to always seek to grow. You know, we've talked about how we could have been a negative influence, but like always, let's turn that around and make it a positive influence. On the next screen, we're going to have a list of positive actions that we can do. we are going to come up with a plan of how to do these actions over the next week. There are going to be all sorts of lists, positive actions on that next slide. So we're going to pick 2 of them and write out a game plan of how we're going to implement them in this next week. So when that pops up on the next screen, let's start making our game plan of how to be a positive influence through positive actions.
Now that we have learned about how to choose a mentor and what our job as mentee is, and in every situation choosing how to be a positive influence, our last challenge of this workshop is to take a picture of what we have worked on during this workshop and to post it on our social media using the hashtag NCFFA Advocates. Chloe and I look forward to seeing what everyone else has learned during the 5th workshop of State Leadership Conference. And we hope to see you guys all here back at 11 a.m. for another workshop. Until then, keep on advocating.